chosen one. Listen carefully. Heaven has paused all activity at exactly 3:33 a.m. Your name was not just whispered, it was declared before the throne. It wasn't sleep paralysis. It wasn't random awakening. The spiritual realm stirred, and your name was released like a sword into battle. You felt it in your spirit before you even opened your eyes. Something called you. Something woke you. That something was not of this world. You are not like the rest. You've never been. The evidence has been following you since birth, marked by rejection, burdened with wisdom too heavy for your age. Awake while others sleep. You don't just carry pain. You carry a pattern, God's fingerprint etched into your soul. This is not emotional hype. This is sacred announcement. The angels spoke your name, and now your spirit is responding. Even now, as you hear this message, you feel the tightening in your chest, the stirring in your belly, the pull in your soul. That's not fear. That's recognition. That's eternity brushing up against time. You are not crazy. You are not overthinking. You are being summoned. There is a divine urgency surrounding you. You are not here by accident. You are being called by name. At 3:33 a.m., heaven released a sound, not to a crowd, not to the masses, but to you, because there are some assignments so holy, so world-shifting. They cannot be announced to everyone. They are whispered into the hearts of the chosen. The chosen suffer more. The chosen wrestle more. The chosen walk alone more, but the chosen also carry what others cannot. And you've been carrying it without knowing what it was. Why do you think the warfare against you has felt so targeted? Why the betrayal? Why the anxiety that doesn't match your circumstances? Because darkness noticed your name was spoken. When angels are dispatched, démons panique. The attack wasn't random, it was responsive. The enemy always hits hardest before heaven elevates. Your name, spoken in the early hour, just before dawn, not shouted, but spoken, because heaven doesn't scream to get your attention. Heaven speaks, and the chosen respond. This is that moment, the one your soul has been waiting for, the one all of hell has feared you'd step into. You were never meant to blend in. That's why you never did. You were always meant to disrupt patterns, to shake systems, to carry weight others would drop. And now is the time for you to rise. You've been waiting for a sign. You're hearing it right now. You're not just watching content. You are being activated. Something eternal is pressing through this screen into your spirit. The angels have already spoken. Now you must respond. Remember how many nights you laid awake asking why you were born, why your heart feels everything, why silence feels louder to you than noise. It's because you've been tuned to a higher frequency. Earth never satisfied you because your soul is wired for the divine. And when heaven calls, the chosen don't need proof. They just know. It was declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 19 says, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions. Yes, and you, authority, not just survival, dominion. You are more than the sum of your traumas. You are more than the whispers of your past. You were not built to break, you were carved to carry glory. That's why the enemy tried to make you end it all. That's why you've had dreams where something tries to choke you in the dark. That's why your life has been attacked since childhood. Because he knew who you'd become if you ever awakened. He feared that Moment, this moment, when your soul would rise and say, I'm still here, and I remember who I am. And the chosen one. There are people tied to your obedience, territories waiting for your voice, generational curses trembling because you've made it this far. You've cried long enough. You've hidden long enough. You've questioned long enough. Now, heaven has spoken. The delay is over. It's time. You will no longer sit in silence. You will no longer let fear paralyze your gift. This is the hour where the awakened rise. And if you feel this in your bonesif, you know this message was sent for. You don't scroll away. Heaven has interrupted your timeline with a summons. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Your soul knows this is not entertainment but a divine dispatch. And if your spirit bears witness, type this prophetic number in the comments now. 333. This is not for everyone. But if it's for you, you already know. You were marked from the beginning. Before your first cry echoed through a delivery room, your name was known in the heavens. Before any human labeled you, God had already identified you. There is a seal on your life, unseen to the natural eye, but visible to angels and demons alike. And that mark has drawn fire. You've always wondered why things seemed harder for you, why others could live careless and carefree while you carried weight. It's because you were chosen, and chosen ones do not walk ordinary paths. Your calling has attracted chaos, not because you are cursed, but because you are carrying something cursed realms, fear. You were not born into peace. You were born into war. And that war didn't begin with your birth, it began before time. When Lucifer was cast down, and heaven declared that those who would carry the light would also carry the battle. You are one of them, a bearer of light, a disruptor of darkness. And that anointing did not begin the day you believed it, began the moment you were formed. Think back. You've always known you were different, not better, different, sensitive to atmospheres, deeply moved by injustice, drawn to silence, restless in shallow spaces. You can't explain why certain places make you anxious, why certain people drain you. It's spiritual. You were never wired for the surface. You feel deeply because your spirit reaches deeply. Others may call it overthinking, but it's discernment. It's divine wiring. Even the attacks you faced in childhood weren't accidental. The enemy often strikes early because he fears your maturity. He knew that if you survived what he sent, you'd become unstoppable. He tried to distort your identity before it had time to root. He tried to suffocate your gift before it had space to bloom. Some of the pain you experienced wasn't because you were weak, it was because you were dangerous. There is a divine map etched into your existence. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every closed door, it wasn't detour. It was direction. Even your delays had purpose. God wasn't withholding. He was preparing. For those marked by heaven, preparation feels like punishment, but it's not. It's proof. The greater the call, the deeper the cutting. You were carved out not just to be used, but to carry glory without breaking under its weight. You've watched others rise quickly while you were left waiting. It wasn't rejection. It was protection. You weren't being benched. You were being built. Because what you are meant to carry cannot be rushed. It must be refined. Chosen vessels aren't microwaved. They are forged in fire. You were being shaped in silence, hidden in the shadows. And it was there that God taught you how to war without applause. Many around you didn't understand. They still don't. How can they? You are carrying something they've never seen. And that loneliness, you felt it wasn't abandonment. It was consecration. God had to separate you to preserve what he was growing in you. Oil doesn't flow from uncrushed vessels. And power doesn't come through popularity. It comes through pressure. If you ever doubted your worth, if you ever wondered why you survived things that crushed others, understand this: you are evidence of God's intentionality. You are not a random event in a random body walking through a random life. You are a prophecy wrapped in flesh. You are an answer to someone's cry. You are a fulfillment of prayers prayed generations before your birth. That's why the fire didn't kill you. That's why you're still standing when others fell. As we read in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2 says, "When you walk through fire, you will not be burned." You didn't just survive, you carried something out of the fire. Wisdom, strength, authority. And now that flame in your bones is becoming a signal, a flare. Heaven is lighting for others to follow. You will not be just another story of pain. You will be a story of power. You will not be defined by what tried to break you. You will be known by the fire you walked through and the glory that followed. Chosen one. Even now, the spiritual realm is watching, not with doubt, but with anticipation. Heaven knows you're waking up. Hell knows it too. And every time you lean into your identity, every time you resist what you used to tolerate, every time you choose obedience over convenience, you become more dangerous. You become more clear. You become more unstoppable. You are not here to impress. You are here to impact. You are not here to blend. You are here to build. And the time for questioning your worth is over. You've been weighed, and you are worthy. Not because of what you've done, but because of who chose you. You were marked from the very beginning. The attacks in the night were never just random episodes of fear or anxiety. They were spiritual evidence. Evidence that something inside of you carries weight in the invisible realm. Chosen one. Those sleepless nights were never meant to torment you. They were meant to reveal you. You thought you were simply having nightmares, waking up at strange hours, feeling a presence in the room, heart racing, breath caught in your throat. But that wasn't just your nervous system acting up. That was spiritual warfare. The moment your spirit began to stir, darkness responded, not because you were weak, but because you were waking up. Hell is not threatened by those who sleep through destiny. It fears the ones who begin to question, begin to pray, begin to seek. And you, though you may not have understood it, you've been in that category your entire life. There are people who live untouched by spiritual warfare because they pose no threat to the kingdom of darkness. But that has never been your story. From a young age, you noticed things others didn't, felt things others dismissed, cried over what others ignored. That wasn't you being too sensitive. That was your spirit being spiritually sensitive. And when a spirit like yours begins to mature, when the light in you starts to glow even slightly, the darkness reacts. The enemy never fought you for where you were. He fought you for who you'd become. The nighttime torment wasn't punishment, it was prevention. It was an attempt to scare you out of pursuing what heaven already wrote about you. But it didn't work, did it? Because here you are, still seeking, still searching, still sensitive, still chosen one. Your light has always disturbed darkness. Your presence has always disrupted what was comfortable and hidden. That's why certain people couldn't stay in your life. That's why some relationships collapsed without explanation. That's why even when you were silent, you felt misunderstood. Your spirit was speaking volumes, even when your mouth said nothing, and the darkness felt it. It knew. That's why those spiritual dreams started increasing, why the presence in the room got heavier, why fear tried to paralyze you in the night. Because the closer you came to realizing your identity, the harder hell fought to distract you. But those dreams, they weren't there to scare you. They were trying to teach you the dream of being chased. It wasn't about fear, it was about calling. You're being pursued not by harm, but by heaven's purpose. The shadowy figure, it was spiritual warfare, a reminder that the unseen realm reacts to your authority. The closed door you kept seeing, that was a divine boundary, something God shut to protect you, not punish you. These were messages from heaven, disguised in symbols. And now, you're starting to understand them. The Spirit has been speaking all along, not just in the day, but especially in the dark, because the dark is where revelation is clearest. In the book of Job, chapter 33, verses 14 through 15, it is written, "For God speaks in one way, and in two, though man does not perceive it, in a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on men." Yes, he speaks in the night, and he's been speaking to you, and now you can't unsee it. Now you can't go back to calling it just a bad dream. Something in you knows now those moments were spiritual. Those encounters were real. And your spirit is responding with clarity, not fear. You are not weak for feeling the weight of the night. You are strong for enduring it. You are not losing your mind. You are gaining your discernment. What once terrified you is now testifying. You were never just a person struggling in the dark. You were a warrior in training. And now that training is turning into purpose, chosen one, don't let the enemy rewrite your story. You weren't tormented because you were broken. You were targeted because you are bold. You weren't haunted by dreams. You were being handed vision. You're seeing more now, feeling more now, understanding more now. And if this word is resonating in the deepest parts of your soul, then speak it. Don't stay silent anymore. Comment, "I choose truth." Say it as your stand. Say it as your sword. Because the moment you choose truth over fear, your spirit begins to take back territory that darkness tried to claim. The night was never your enemy. It was your awakening. You carry a threat to darkness. That's why things shift when you walk into a room. That's why some people feel uneasy around you, even if you've done nothing but be present. It's not your personality, it's your presence. It's not that you're loud, it's that your spirit speaks, even when your mouth doesn't. And what it speaks sends tremors into the camp of the enemy. You were not built to blend in. God made you to stand out, not in ego, but in essence. There is something in you that refuses to bow, that refuses to conform, even when you tried to fit in. You couldn't. There was always something misaligned, always a restlessness in your soul, because you were not designed for agreement with darkness. You are disruption. You are interference. You are light in its rawest, most dangerous form. This is why your presence alone has drawn jealousy, accusation, and spiritual retaliation. Some people have hated you without cause. Others tried to befriend you, only to betray you once they got close. Don't be deceived. This isn't just human behavior. It's spiritual reaction. You provoke spirits. You disturb atmospheres. You cause what's hidden to surface. When you walk in, strongholds get nervous. You are not just a person, you are a spiritual confrontation. Every chosen one carries a signal in the spirit. Heaven recognizes it. Hell dreads it. It's not about how perfect you are. It's about what you carry. You carry light that exposes, light that heals, light that convicts, and light that breaks chains. And where there is true light, there will always be resistance. Always. You've felt it. In your relationships, in your work, in your family. Conversations become heavy. People shift around you. You've walked into spaces and felt an unseen weight press against you. That's not paranoia. That's discernment. You're not just walking into rooms, you're walking into realms. And realms react when power enters. This is why darkness has tried to silence your voice before you even found it. Why fear kept you quiet, even when your spirit was burning to speak. Why shame shadowed your every step, making you feel disqualified by your past. But hear this clearly. God does not anoint the flawless, He anoints the faithful. And your faith, your endurance, your resilience under pressure is what proves your calling. Chosen one. You've been a threat since the moment you survived what others didn't. You've been a problem for the enemy since the moment you got back up after falling. Each comeback made you louder in the spirit. Each healing multiplied your fire. Every time you said yes to God in private, your name echoed louder in hell's corridors. You've been underestimated because your glory has been hidden. But God hides His best until the appointed time, and now that time is drawing near. You're not just coming out of hiding, you're stepping into confrontation. Your presence will confront what others tolerate. You will not have to argue. You will not have to fight with flesh. Your very existence will disturb what's been sleeping around you. As Paul reminds us in the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12 says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." This is why the battles have been unexplainable. Why the spiritual heaviness hits you randomly. Because you're not just navigating life, you're navigating warfare. And it's not fair. It's not easy. But it's necessary. Because someone has to carry the light. Someone has to step into dark places and not flinch. That someone is you. You carry more than insight. You carry impact. Your words don't just inspire, they shift things. Your tears don't just fall, they water future deliverance. You've been under fire not because you're weak, but because you're weaponized. And the enemy knows that once you realize the full weight of your authority, the gates of hell cannot hold back what you will release. You've been carrying this mantle quietly, but heaven is stirring now. The light you bear is about to go public, not for attention but for assignment. God is not raising up performers. He's raising up fire carriers. Those who will not water down the truth to make others comfortable. Those who will burn in purity and stand in warfare without breaking. Chosen one. Your light is not fragile. It is fierce. And though darkness has tried to convince you that you are too broken, too tired, too late, it's a lie. You are more dangerous now than you've ever been. Because now you know. Now you see. And now you are ready to walk in what has always been yours. You are the threat. Not because you asked to be, but because you were born to be. This is not content. This is a divine interruption. You didn't find this message by chance. You were led to it, and you know it in your bones. Something inside of you is stirring, waking up, shaking off the dust of delay, because this is more than a moment, it's an activation. Chosen one, this is your alarm in the spirit. You've been feeling it for a while now. A deep restlessness, a divine dissatisfaction. You've outgrown certain conversations. Certain environments feel too small. Old distractions don't excite you anymore. You're not just maturing, you're transforming. That discomfort is the pressure of a calling that can't be confined anymore. You are being stretched. Why? Because what's in you is bigger than what's around you. This message is not here to comfort your flesh. It's here to confront your destiny, because the time for being silent about your anointing is over. Heaven has sounded a trumpet in the spirit, and your name is the one being summoned. Look around you. You've never fit. You've never fully belonged. That's not a flaw. That's confirmation. You weren't made to blend in because you were created to shift atmospheres. You are not like the rest. That's not arrogance. That's truth. And truth is calling your name again loud and clear. You've been living in survival mode when you were designed for dominion. You've been managing what you were meant to multiply, playing it safe with a gift that was meant to set people free. You've dimmed your light to avoid attention. But in doing so, you've denied heaven's assignment on your life. Let this message be the line in the sand, the turning point, the spiritual confrontation that forces you to say, I cannot unhear this. I cannot go back. You know too much now. You've seen too much. You've endured too much to sit in silence any longer. The fire that's been rising in your belly is not anxiety. It's not hype. It's divine urgency. A holy pressure to step out of hiding and into authority. The kind of pressure that heaven only applies to the chosen. And you are chosen. This is the moment you'll look back on and say, that's when everything shifted. That's when your excuses bowed to your assignment. That's when fear finally ran out of space in your spirit. That's when obedience became more important than comfort. Because hear this, you don't need another sign. This is it. God is confirming everything your spirit has been whispering. You are not crazy. You are not overreaching. You are not imagining things. You are waking up. You are being set apart. You are being prepared for something bigger than your resume, your resources, or your reputation. And the next step is simple. Respond boldly, publicly, without hesitation. If this word is resonating deep in your spirit, if you know this was tailor-cut from heaven's throne for your exact season, then it's time to take action. Like this message, share it, subscribe. Yes, actually do it, right now, not because you're a fan, but because your spirit is in agreement, because heaven is waiting for the sound of your surrender. And when you hit like, you're signaling, I'm awake. I hear you. I'm ready. When you hit share, you're declaring, this word is not just for mates, for others like me, who are still asleep. And when you subscribe, you're saying, I want to stay connected to what God is pouring out in this hour. Don't underestimate these small acts. They are faith in motion. And let's be honest, how many random, meaningless videos have you watched, liked, or shared without thinking twice? But now a divine word is in front of you. A word that confirms your identity, unlocks your clarity, and charges your spirit. And all of heaven is watching to see what you do next. This moment is sacred, because your agreement activates the next level of instruction. The word has gone forth. Now the mantle is being extended, not to the talented, not to the popular, but to the obedient. You don't need a platform to obey. You don't need a pulpit to respond. All you need is a surrendered heart. Chosen one. This isn't just encouragement, it's a charge, a commissioning, a moment that separates the interested from the initiated. If you've made it this far into this message, it's not because of curiosity, it's because you've been handpicked for this time. You are not random. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are the answer to a cry no one else heard. You are the continuation of a legacy someone else dropped. You are heaven's yes in a generation full of compromise. And now, heaven is waiting for your yes in return. So do what chosen ones do. Respond with action, not just emotion. Like, share, subscribe. This is not hype. This is holy. At 3:33 a.m., something shifted in the unseen realm. The hour wasn't random. The number wasn't meaningless. It was a spiritual codear divine timestamp, echoing in eternity. A call was released, and your name was on it. Chosen one. Heaven dispatched angels with urgency. At that exact hour, the veil thinned, while others slept. Heaven moved, and that tug in your spirit, the one you can't explain, that's not anxiety, that's spiritual awareness. The response window opened in that moment, and your soul knew it. Why do you think you've been waking up around that time? Why do you think certain dreams only come in the early morning hours? Why does your heart beat differently when the clock reads 3:33? Because your name is being spoken in divine circles, and heaven is waiting for your agreement. The number 3 isn't just symbolic. It's a divine pattern. 3 represents resurrection. 3 days in the grave. 3 denials turned into restoration. 3 in 1, the fullness of God's nature. When 3:33 appears, it is a summons from the throne, not just to believe, but to move. At that hour, angels are not simply watching, they're moving. Strategically, swiftly, silently. There is a divine deployment happening, and it involves you. You've been in a season of silence, but heaven has not been silent about you. God has not forgotten you. In fact, while you were sleeping, He was writing your name into assignments. You think you're waiting on a word, but God has already sent it, and now He's waiting for your response. Chosen one. Angelic activity doesn't happen for entertainment. It happens when divine alignment is demanded, and at 3:33 a.m., the demand was made. Send help. Send instruction. Send warning. You didn't stumble into this timing. Your life has been placed in divine sequence, and 3:33 isn't just a clock, it's a code, a call to wake up, to rise, to respond. The reason this resonates so deeply in your spirit is because your soul has already heard it before. This moment isn't new. It's remembered. Your spirit knew this alignment would come again, and now it has. That weight you feel in your chest as you hear these words, that's the recognition of divine recall. You've heard this before, maybe not with ears, but with eternity. It's not a coincidence. It's confirmation. It was written in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 33. Verse 3 says, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. And there it is, the pattern, the number, the promise. Heaven says, call to me, not when it's convenient, not when it's comfortable, now, because this is the moment where access is open and your calling is waiting for a response. Chosen one. Heaven is extending a window, but it will not stay open forever. The response window is a sacred thing. It means mercy is still moving. Angels are still stationed. The warning is still gentle, but time is moving. And disobedience delays. Destiny. That's why this message hits differently. You're not being informed, you're being invited into deeper revelation, into a higher assignment, into divine clarity. And with that invitation comes a test. Will you respond, or will you scroll past? This isn't for everyone. Many are called, few are chosen, and fewer still respond when heaven knocks at 3:33, but you're not like the rest. You feel this in your bones. You know something sacred is happening. Your body may not understand it, but your spirit does. And when the spirit calls, silence becomes dangerous. God is not calling you to understand everything. He's calling you to obey what you feel. To step into alignment with what you know deep inside is real. And right now, alignment looks like agreement. Heaven move for you at 3:33. Will you move for heaven now? If you know this message is for you, if 3:33 has shown up again and again, and your spirit is vibrating with recognition, then it's time to echo back, to respond with faith, not just in your heart, but with your voice. Comment this prophetic number, 333. This is not a trend. It's a testimony, a sign to heaven that you see the pattern, that you receive the message, that you're not asleep anymore. When you type it, you're not just commenting, you're coming into agreement. You're sending a signal in the spirit. I heard you, and I am responding. And 333 is your confirmation. It's your surrender. It's your yes. Chosen one. Your name was spoken in the early hour. Now, speak it back with the number that carries the weight of that moment. Comment 333. Heaven is listening. You're being summoned out of hiding. This isolation you've been walking through, it wasn't rejection. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't some cosmic mistake. It was consecration. God didn't bury you. He planted you. And like any true seed, your time beneath the surface was required before the fullness of your purpose could rise. You've felt forgotten, overlooked, shelved. You've watched others rise and shine while you sat in silence. You've questioned whether God was still watching, whether you were still called, whether you missed something, but chosen one. Nothing was missed. Your silence was strategic. Your stillness was sacred. God had to pull you back before he could launch you forward. You thought you were waiting on God, but really, he was waiting on you to grow strong in the hidden place. The wilderness you've walked wasn't punishment. It was preparation. That season where friends faded, opportunities dried up, doors closed without reason, every bit of it was holy. Because those connections couldn't go where you're headed, the noise had to be silenced for the voice of God to grow louder. You couldn't hear him clearly while surrounded by distractions dressed as blessings, so he stripped you. He didn't strip you to shame you. He stripped you to strengthen you, to separate you from what was draining you, to protect you from counterfeits. to clear your vision, because your next season requires sensitivity and your destiny demands discernment. You weren't being hidden from people, you were being hidden for purpose. Even Jesus, before he launched into ministry, went into the wilderness, not to be forgotten, but to be forged, to be filled, to be focused. So when the public moment came, the private preparation had already secured his foundation. Chosen one, your hiding season was heaven's shield. While you cried about loneliness, God was building layers of spiritual armor around you. While you mourned empty rooms, heaven filled those rooms with angels that warred on your behalf. While your name was absent from conversations on earth, it was being whispered in heavenly courts. You have not been ignored. You've been guarded. And now the time has come. The weight has shifted. The atmosphere is different. You feel it, not in your emotions, but in your spirit. Something is stirring. A quickening, a tension, a pull. That's the voice of God saying, come out of the cave. It's time. It's time to step out of obscurity. Time to walk into the fullness of who you are. Time to release what's been maturing in silence. You are not the same person who went into hiding. You are stronger, sharper, deeper. You are no longer searching for identity. You're walking in revelation. Don't mistake your quiet season for weakness. The loudest people are often the emptiest, but you've been filled in silence. You've been armed in isolation. The oil on your life didn't come from applause, it came from crushing. And now you carry authority, not borrowed authority, not pretend power, but real, heaven-born, battle-tested authority. The kind of authority that shifts rooms without saying a word. The kind that causes the enemy to retreat before you even speak. This is why the hiding season was necessary. Because you had to learn to recognize God without the crowd. You had to hear his whisper before you could withstand the noise. And now you do. You've walked through fire. And the smell of smoke isn't on you. You faced storms. But you didn't drown. You were buried in grief. But you rose in strength. And what you carry now cannot be silenced anymore. The world may not know your name, but hell does. And heaven has never stopped saying it. Chosen one. The summoning has begun. And not just for comfort or clarity, but for movement. God is calling you out of the cave. Because the assignment cannot wait. There are lives attached to your obedience. There are regions that will shift when you step into your mantle. There are generational curses waiting to break at the sound of your yes. So come out. Come out of fear. Come out of self-doubt. Come out of procrastination. Come out of comfort. Come out of false humility. The time of hiding is over. You've been summoned not to entertain, not to impress but to impact. The oil was never for aesthetics. It was for war. The wilderness wasn't to weaken you. It was to reveal what couldn't be shaken. And now, heaven is sounding the call. Come forth, chosen one. The earth has waited long enough. Delay is not always denial, but in this hour, delay can become disobedience. There was a time when grace held back the weight of consequence, when mercy stepped in between your hesitation and your purpose. But the clock is ticking now, and heaven is drawing a clear line in the sand. What you used to get away with in the past will cost more in this season, not because God loves you less, but because your calling has matured, and the stakes have risen. Chosen one. The time for wavering is over. You don't have the luxury of spiritual procrastination anymore. What once felt like small delays are now becoming doors that are closing. The window of response is narrowing. And it's not to pressure you, it's to protect what's waiting for you on the other side of obedience. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. You've said, "I'm just waiting for confirmation." But confirmation has already come. In dreams, in conversations, in divine patterns like Trent Traw, in the tugging of your spirit. The truth is, you haven't been waiting on God. God has been waiting on you. This isn't about rushing. It's about responding, because some moments in the Spirit are not repeatable. There are divine intersections that only come once. And if you miss them, they don't always circle back. And you feel it, don't you? The pressure, the urgency, not from outside, but from within. Your soul knows it's time. That restlessness is not coincidence. It's the Spirit of God brooding over your life, waiting for your response to match the magnitude of your assignment. You've tried to reason it away. You've said, "Maybe next season," or "I'm not ready," or "I need to fix more in myself first." But heaven never called the qualified. It qualifies those who respond. Your readiness doesn't come before the call, it's activated by it. And make no mistake, you have been called. You are not being nudged for a minor adjustment. This is a full turning, a deep shift, a divine awakening. And every day you stay on the fence. You forfeit momentum. Destiny is not built on feelings, it's built on faith. And faith requires movement. There are people waiting on the other side of your obedience. There are lives you don't even know yet, but they are tied to your surrender. And if you don't move, they may not find their way. This isn't just about you. This is about legacy, lineage, kingdom movement. You are carrying something generational, and what you don't confront in your life, your children may have to battle. What you ignore in fear today may turn into bondage for someone else tomorrow. That's how serious this is. God is merciful, but He's also strategic. And when the cloud moves, we must move with it. If you stay in a place after God has moved on, you may still feel His love, but you'll no longer walk in alignment. And alignment is everything. It brings clarity, authority, protection, provision. It opens the right doors and closes the wrong ones. It positions you for favor that can't be earned or explained. But alignment only comes through obedience. Note, selective obedience, not partial, but complete surrender. Delayed obedience is disobedience, and disobedience builds distance. You've wondered why your prayers feel stuck, why the dreams seem heavy, why worship feels dry. It's not because God has withdrawn, it's because He's moved forward, and He's waiting for you to catch up. This is the mercy of warning, because there will come a time when delayed responses lead to closed windows, not because God wants to punish you, but because certain assignments are time-sensitive. Some doors lead to other doors, and when one is missed, entire seasons can be rerouted. But you're not too late. You're reading this because there's still time. There's still mercy. The Spirit is still calling, but don't mistake this grace for permission to wait forever. This is your moment. The fire you feel, that's the Spirit saying, move now, speak now, step now. Like Abraham leaving everything he knew, like Moses stepping into Egypt with a stutter, like Esther risking her life for her people. Obedience didn't make sense in the natural, but it made history in the kingdom, so will yours. Chosen one, this is your crossroads. To obey, even when you're unsure. To step, even when you're trembling. To move, even if no one claps. Because obedience is not about outcome, it's about alignment. And you are being aligned. Right now, delay no longer serves you. Hesitation has become a hindrance. The cost of silence is rising. The weight of disobedience is heavier than the fear of failing. Choose movement. Choose surrender. Choose obedience. Before the window closes, hell never feared your failure. It feared your awakening. The enemy was never truly invested in destroying your finances, your relationships, or your confidence. Those were only side effects. The real target was your awareness. Because the moment you became aware of who you really are, the moment you remembered you'd become unstoppable. That's why the war intensified right before your turning point. That's why things got darker when you started drawing closer to God. That's why confusion increased the moment you began to seek clarity. It wasn't coincidence. It was collision between your calling and the forces that hoped you'd never answer it. The enemy hoped you'd stay numb. He hoped you'd settle for survival. He hoped you'd live your life through filters of fear, shame, trauma, and insecurity. Because as long as you stayed asleep to your identity, hell could keep your authority hostage. But chosen one, something happened. You started to remember, not just who you are, but whose you are. You began to realize you were never called to just make it through life. You were called to shake systems, to carry a sound, to walk in authority. You weren't just saved from something, you were saved for something. And now that you've seen it, even if only a glimpse, hell is terrified. Because nothing is more dangerous than a chosen one who remembers their crown. All the confusion, a tactic. The betrayal, a distraction. The spiritual fatigue, a weapon. But none of it worked. You're still here, still standing, still seeking, and that makes you dangerous. Because the ones who come through the fire don't fear flames anymore. And you've come through enough fire to know what's real and what's not. You've been in survival mode for so long that stepping into purpose feels risky. But hear this, you were not saved to stay silent. You were not healed to stay hidden. You were not chosen to stay chained to the idea that you're not ready. You are ready. Not because you've mastered everything, but because you've surrendered. Not because you're flawless, but because you're available. And that's what God needs in this hour. Those who are available, not perfect. Those who say yes in the middle of their trembling, because there's a fire that gets birthed in the pit, a flame that grows in the midst of loss, rejection, and spiritual warfare. And you carry that fire now, not because you chased it, but because you survived what was sent to smother it. You are the evidence that darkness failed, that depression didn't win, that shame didn't silence you, that fear didn't bury you. And your awakening is not just for you, it's for those who will awaken through you. The moment you walk in truth, others will be set free from lies. The moment you embrace your identity, others will start to question their chains. That's why hell fights you. That's why it hoped you'd never wake up. Because your freedom is a chain breaker, and your obedience is contagious. As Paul reminds us in the book of Romans, chapter 13, verset 11 says, "It is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed." Oh, yes. It is high time. This is the awakening. You are stepping into the realization that you are not just a believer, you are a breaker, a builder, a carrier of divine disruption. So, what now? Now you shake off the dust. You silence the lies. You rise like the warrior you were always meant to be. And you don't apologize for it. You don't shrink to make others comfortable. You don't delay to seem humble. You walk boldly because God is behind every step. And if your spirit is roaring right now, if your soul is responding with a fire you can't explain, it's because this message wasn't just spoken to you, it was spoken from you, from the deepest parts of your identity that hell tried to cover. But you can't unsee it now. You can't unknow what you've come to realize. You are not just someone God saved. You are someone He sent. And if you feel this in your bones, it's time to say it aloud, not with fear, but with fire. Comment, "I choose my crown." Let it be your declaration, your agreement, your uprising. You're not hiding anymore. You're not denying your mantle. You're not shrinking from the spotlight God crafted just for your obedience. You are rising, crowned, called, and fully awake. Hell hoped you'd stay asleep. It failed. Those dreams weren't just dreams. They weren't random. They weren't just subconscious noise or mental clutter. They were divine signals, prophetic whispers sent to awaken you. Warnings wrapped in symbols. Messages disguised as midnight visions. And whether you understood them or not, your spirit did. Because you are not ordinary. You've always been spiritually wired. Chosen one. God has been speaking to you in the night. He has been showing you images, people, and patterns, not to scare you, but to prepare you. Every recurring dream, every spiritual vision, every symbolic moment you've had while asleep was heaven's way of trying to get your attention when the world was silent enough for you to finally listen. Because when God has marked someone for divine use, He doesn't wait for the perfect setting. He begins the process long before they understand it. And for you, that process began in the night. Think back. You've had dreams you couldn't explain, people appearing over and over, warnings that felt too vivid to ignore. You've woken up sweating, shaken, unable to return to sleep. That wasn't your mind wandering. That was your soul receiving information your natural eyes couldn't yet comprehend. There were moments where you saw things before they happened, heard names before they were spoken, sensed danger before it arrived. That wasn't paranoia. That was discernment, awakening through divine interruption. You were being trained to see beyond what others see, because your gift isn't for entertainment. It's for war. And these dreams, especially the ones that come between 3 and 4 AAR, often where God releases both warning and wisdom, where your spirit is being educated in the language of the supernatural. And the enemy has tried to twist that gift by flooding your nights with fear, confusion, and torment. But that's how you know it's valuable. Hell never fights what isn't a threat. The moment you begin to take your dreams seriously, you become more dangerous. Because revelation is power, and your ability to hear from heaven while asleep is a sign that you're being prepared to lead while awake. Chosen one. The dreams weren't hallucinations. They were instructions. That serpent that kept showing up wasn't just a nightmare. It was a spiritual warning about betrayal. That feeling of being chased wasn't just emotion, it was the enemy reacting to your rising awareness. That locked door in your dream, it represented access being denied for your protection. God has been speaking, and if you pay attention, patterns will form, and if you seek wisdom, the symbols will begin to make sense. This is the language of the Spirit, and you're being retaught how to hear it, because you knew this once, before the world numbed you, before trauma dulled your discernment, before disappointment taught you to ignore the divine. But now you're remembering. Your dreams are becoming clearer, your nights more intense, not because something is wrong, but because something is awakening. In the Bible, God often used dreams to reveal destiny. He gave Pharaoh a warning through Joseph. He spoke to Daniel through visions in the night. He warned the wise men in a dream not to return to Herod. And he directed Joseph, the earthly father of Jesus, through a dream to protect the Messiah. So if dreams carried weight in Scripture, why would they be meaningless now? The truth is, they're more important than you think, because your dreams are not just about you, they're about those assigned to your life. And every time you ignore them, you delay someone else's deliverance. This is not the time to disregard what God is saying while you sleep. It was declared in the book of Job, chapter 33, verses 14 through 16 says, "For God speaks once, yes, twice, yet man perceives it not. In a dream, in a vision of the night, he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction. Lect, there it is, plain, clear. God speaks in dreams, and your dreams have been full because your calling is weighty. That's why the warfare has intensified. That's why you wake up heavy, because you're carrying revelation, and revelation will always attract resistance. But don't stop dreaming. Don't let fear make you forget. God has trusted you with insight that others have to fast and pray for. Don't throw it away. Don't downplay it. The more you honor it, the more it will grow. And if this word resonates, if your dreams have been stirring you awake, and this is the confirmation you've been crying out, for then you know what to do. Like this message. Share it. Subscribe. Yes. Actually do it now. This is how you mark the moment in the Spirit. Not just by hearing, but by responding. Not just by feeling stirred, but by choosing to say, I'm listening. I see it now. I will not ignore it again. You're not imagining things. God has been speaking. Now you must speak back. Like, share, subscribe. Your dreams matter, and so does your response. There is warfare in your bloodline. You didn't choose. The fight it was waiting for you when you arrived. You were born into a story that started long before you breathed your first breath. And somewhere along the line, heaven looked down and said, this one will be the interruption. Oh, that's why your life has been different. Not because you're cursed, but because you were born to confront what others ignored. You're not the problem in your family. You are the problem for every generational spirit that thought it had ownership over your bloodline. And the resistance you've faced is proof of that. Chosen one. The patterns in your family didn't start with you, but they can end with you. The addiction, the broken marriages, the cycles of poverty, the silence around abuse. The spiritual confusion, it wasn't just coincidence. These were strongholds rooted deep, buried beneath tradition and normalized dysfunction. But God placed a different spirit inside of you. You couldn't accept what everyone else tolerated. You questioned what others defended. You saw through the smile that masked pain, and for that, you were marked as too sensitive, too intense, too much. But in heaven's eyes, you were never too anything. You were just different, divinely different. You've been carrying a weight that no one explained. You felt a responsibility that seemed unfair, but that pressure wasn't misplaced, it was inherited. Because the enemy knew, if you ever came into full awareness, the cycles would begin to break. And now, here you are, still standing, still seeking, still chosen. You didn't get here without cost. You've wept over things that never touched others. You've mourned losses others called normal. You've fought to forgive people who never apologized. And deep down, you felt the ache of spiritual warfare that couldn't be named, but was always felt. Why? Because spirits don't target the indifferent, they target the breakers. You were born with fire in your veins, even when you didn't understand it. You were drawn to light before you could name it. Something in you always rejected the lie that this is just how we are. You knew something has to change, and God chose you to be that change. Not just to escape, but to transform. Not just to survive the storm, but to shift the entire atmosphere in your lineage. That's why the battle over your mind has been so intense. Why the enemy tried to silence your voice through shame and trauma. Because if you ever spoke, generations would listen. If you ever moved in authority, curses would crumble. You are not the continuation of pain. You are the beginning of freedom. And though you were born into a war, you carry the authority to win it. Not by force, but by faith. Not by trying harder, but by surrendering deeper. You don't need to strive to be enough. You already are. Heaven didn't choose you by accident. You were selected with strategy, marked in mystery, anointed in silence. And now the oil is beginning to surface. You're starting to realize that what once felt like isolation was really preparation. That the tears you shed were watering soil for seeds you couldn't yet see. That your hunger for more truth, more depth, more purity wasn't pride. It was alignment. Heaven was calling you to rise above the dysfunction you were raised in. It was never about being better than them. It was about being braver than what tried to destroy them. God didn't choose you to shame your family. He chose you to set a new standard, to live a different way, to speak where silence has ruled, to walk in the Spirit where religion failed, and to do it with love but without apology. You are the breaker, the builder, the intercessor, the first in line to say, no more. No more cycles of defeat. No more silence around sin. No more spiritual confusion. No more inherited trauma. You are heaven's resistance, and the more you walk in obedience, the more power will flow through your life. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to stay in alignment. Because what God is doing through you is bigger than the present, it's about the future. You are rewriting history. You are establishing legacy. You are walking with angels behind you and a mantle on your shoulders. This is not the end of the battle, but it is the beginning of victory. You have been sent to do what others could not finish. And you will, because you were born into this fight. But you won't die in it. You were chosen to finish what others abandoned. There were mantles that fell in your bloodline, assignments that went unfulfilled, prayers that were left hanging in the air, purposes left dormant because fear spoke louder than faith. Generations before you were called, but not all responded. And now, the weight of those unfinished callings has landed on your shoulders, but not as a burden, as a baton. Chosen one. You were never meant to run someone else's race, but you have been positioned to complete what they could not carry, not because they were failures, but because their ceiling was meant to become your floor. You are the continuation of every silent yes, every quiet prayer, every hidden act of obedience from those who came before you. That's why your life has felt heavier than others. Why your soul feels like it remembers battles you've never lived. Why you carry spiritual weight beyond your years. It's because you were born into a legacy that still had chapters unwritten, and heaven assigned you to pick up the pen. You've been trying to make sense of your journey, why you never fit in, why doors closed without warning, why people you loved walked away. But it's all connected. The call on your life required separation. It required pressure. It required that you grow without applause. Because what you carry must be protected. You're not just chosen for now, you're chosen for what's left. The unbroken covenant, the unfinished intercession, the generational victory that was prophesied but never possessed. You've been appointed to carry it across the line. There are mantles that fell in silence, gifts that no one honored, wisdom that died on lips too afraid to speak. But God never forgets what He places in a bloodline. And if one vessel says no, He prepares another. If one runner drops the torch, heaven assigns someone new to pick it up and keep moving. You are that someone. That's why the warfare has been generational. Why? The oppression didn't start with you, but it's trying to end with you. Because the darkness that plagued your family has recognized the threat of your awakening. It sees that you've stopped settling, that you've started seeking, that you're not afraid to ask the questions others buried in silence. You felt the spiritual weight of responsibility, and maybe you tried to ignore it. Maybe you thought, this is too much, or why me? But God doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't randomly assign glory. He entrusts it, and He's entrusted you with the next phase of the mission. You are not unqualified. You are not too late. You are not alone. Heaven is with you, and angels surround your assignment. What others dropped out of fear, you will carry in boldness. What others refused to speak, you will declare without shame. What others only saw in part, you will walk in with clarity, because the Spirit of God is resting on you, not for entertainment, but for execution. This is the hour of the finishers, the ones who will complete the work, the ones who don't crave spotlight, but pursue obedience, the ones who are not moved by applause or rejection, but by the voice of the one who called them. You are one of those. You were not called to start and stop. You were called to endure, to press forward, to release what has been gestating in your spirit through every season of silence. This is not the beginning of your journey, it's the moment where everything heaven invested in you begins to emerge. There is legacy in your bones. There is inheritance in your breath. There is breakthrough on your tongue. You don't have to be perfect to finish well. You just have to keep going. Keep trusting. Keep surrendering. The assignment may be ancient, but the power behind it is fresh, and it's available to you right now. You are not walking alone. You are surrounded by the prayers of your ancestors, the oil of heaven, and the confirmation that this is your moment. You were chosen to complete it. You are the finisher, the carrier, the closer. And if your spirit knows this is true, if everything in you is resonating with the weight of this word, then let heaven hear your echo. Comment 777, because 777 is the number of divine completion, the number of heaven's order, the number that declares, I will not drop what I've been called to carry. You are stepping into alignment with legacy, with victory, and with divine fulfillment. Comment 777, if you know this word wasn't for your earset, was for your assignment. Mercy is still present, but it's standing at the edge. For too long, you've been living between decisions, caught between conviction and comfort, between what you know you're called to do and what you feel is safer. But now, the line is no longer blurry. The moment is no longer someday. The Spirit is no longer whispering softly. It is roaring, chosen one. You are nearing the threshold where delay becomes rebellion. Mercy does not last forever. Grace is a gift, but it is not a license to remain idle. There comes a moment in every chosen life when heaven withdraws its waiting and demands a response, not out of cruelty, but out of urgency. Because what is at stake is no longer just your destiny, it's everything connected to it. You've been warned, not just by sermons, not just by signs, but by storms. The warfare you've been facing is not because you're doing something wrong, it's because you've paused too long at the intersection of obedience. The longer you wait, the heavier the atmosphere around you becomes. Your dreams become more intense. Your rest becomes more disturbed. Your peace becomes harder to find. That is not punishment. That is pressure from the Spirit. Because when a chosen one delays, all of heaven feels the tension. There is a cost to hesitation, a cost to knowing what God has said and doing nothing with it, a cost to hearing and still holding back. You may think you're protecting yourself from failure, but really, you're postponing freedom, not just your own, but others. Because when you delay your assignment, everything assigned to your voice sits in darkness, waiting. And there is a moment when mercy steps back. It's a terrifying thing when heaven honors your silence. When God no longer presses because you've made it clear that you will not move. It's not that he stops loving you, it's that he stops nudging you. And when heaven goes silent, that's not peace, it's danger. You were not called to live in tension forever. You were not created to circle the same mountain year after year. There is a moment, this moment, when heaven requires movement, when stillness is no longer stillness, but spiritual defiance. This is that moment. You've been given time, given signs, given words clear, direct, unmistakable, and yet fear kept you still. Pride kept you analyzing, pain kept you second-guessing. But none of those things hold power over you unless you allow them to. The time for entertaining hesitation has ended. God is not calling you to figure everything out. He is calling you to say yes. And when your yes comes, movement begins. Doors shift. Strategies unfold. Protection activates. Favor flows. But until then, you live beneath your potential covered in mercy, yet missing momentum. As we read in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 26 says, "If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left." This is not just about sin, as we often define it. This is about disobedience after revelation, about hearing truth, receiving instruction, and still choosing your own way. That is where mercy grows thin. That is where danger creeps in. Not as punishment, but as consequence. God will not force you. Heaven will not beg. But the door does not stay open forever. You are not being manipulated. You are being warned. And the warning is love. The tension is grace. The pressure is heaven's final nudge. There is still time, but not as much as you think. Some assignments are bound to seasons. Some doors are opened by obedience within divine timing. You cannot carry tomorrow's mantle if you won't respond in today's moment. And if you miss this window, what is behind it may not open again. You've been told, God will always wait, but that's not entirely true. He waits for the willing, not the stubborn, for the surrendered, not the calculating. God is patient, but he is also just. And when a chosen one refuses to answer, he will raise another. He will reroute the plan. Not because he is petty, but because he is purposeful. You are not replaceable in love, but you are replaceable in assignment. And this is your final chance to hold what heaven has been offering. Do not harden your heart. Do not explain it away. Do not hope for another time. This is the time. Mercy stands at the edge not to threaten you, but to remind you, you are one rebellion away from blindness. That's how close it is. That's how thin the veil has become. And still, the door remains cracked open, but only for a little while longer. The response window is closing. What was once an invitation is becoming a line of accountability. The same word that once comforted you is now confronting you. The grace that once held your hesitation is now demanding your movement. And the Spirit is not asking any more, right? Is requiring, you've heard enough. You've seen enough. You've been stirred, warned, awakened, and confirmed. Now, the question is no longer, will God speak again? It is, will you obey what he already said? Because when heaven speaks repeatedly and the chosen still delay, the silence that follows is not quiet, it is judgment. And the window, the divine opportunity to respond while mercy is still moving, begins to shut. God is not cruel, but he is holy. He is long-suffering, but he is also just. And there comes a moment when continual delay turns into divine dismissal, not out of spite, but because purpose must go forward with or without your participation. And that is the sobering truth. God's plan will not stop. Even if you refuse to walk in it, you were never the center. You were the vessel. And if the vessel breaks itself in resistance, the oil will find another container. You are precious, chosen one. But obedience is not optional. Not in this hour. Not with this weight. Not with this calling. Some doors are tied to moments. Not seasons, moments. Split seconds in eternity, where all of heaven aligns. Where everything you've prayed for is positioned on the other side of one step. And when that moment comes, you don't get to ask for extra time. You move, or you miss it. And for you, the moment is now. The opportunity to respond is not eternal. Not because God is impatient, but because divine momentum is time-sensitive. Just as the tide rises and recedes, so does spiritual alignment. When you hesitate at high tide, the waters of favor pull back. And while grace may remain, the movement does not. That's what few talk about, the loss of momentum. You can still be loved by God and miss your moment. You can still be saved and live beneath your purpose. You can still know truth and never walk in fullness. Because movement is required. You can't carry revival while gripping rebellion. You can't carry glory if you're chained to comfort. And you cannot walk in new dimensions if you refuse to step away from dead places. The longer you hold on to old patterns, the heavier the weight of missed timing becomes. Chosen one. The Spirit isn't stirring you for emotional reaction. It's trying to shake you free from your delay. Because even your hesitation has spiritual consequence. The people connected to your voice, they're waiting. The freedom on the other side of your yes, still on pause. The territory you've been assigned to, still unclaimed. You think you're waiting on God, but God's waiting on your obedience. And the longer you delay, the harder your heart becomes. That's the quiet danger of resistance. It numbs you. What once pierced you now feels normal. What once made you weep now only stirs curiosity. That's how you know the window is closing, not just around you, but within you. Conviction fades when delay becomes habitual. But here's the good news. It hasn't fully closed yet. You're still reading. You're still sensing. That means God is still reaching, still pleading, still offering one more chance to rise and respond while the door of movement is still open. But that door will not remain open indefinitely, because God will not waste oil on vessels that refuse to pour. He will not send fire where there is no altar. He will not extend opportunities to those who keep negotiating with his commands. This is it. The line is drawn. The sky is shifting. The weight is increasing. And the time to pretend you don't know is gone. You do know. You've known. And now the choice is yours. Rise or remain. Move or miss. Obey or harden. There is no third option. The silence you feel lately, that's not absence. That's the space between instruction and response. And that space is shrinking. This is your turning point. You will never be able to say you weren't warned. Never be able to say you didn't feel it. Never be able to say God was silent. He has spoken. He is speaking still. But he will not speak forever. The response window is closing. And this time, it will not be opened again. Rise. Rule. Reclaim. You were not chosen just to endure. You were chosen to govern. You were never meant to stay a survivor. You were always meant to be a ruler in the spirit. You were not rescued just to stay safe. You were rescued to reign. And this is the moment when your authority must be reclaimed. Chosen one. You have spent too long bowing your head in defeat. Too long questioning if you're worthy. Too long sitting in the shadow of your calling, hoping someone would give you permission to step forward. But hear it now, loud and clear. Heaven is not asking. Heaven is commissioning. You have been set apart to rise, to rule with righteousness, to reclaim what darkness stole not just from you, but from your bloodline, your region, your generation. There is land that belongs to you in the spirit. There is inheritance with your name on it. And until you rise and take it, the enemy will continue to squat on territory that is rightfully yours. The enemy doesn't fear your belief, he fears your movement. He fears the moment you stop being intimidated by the past. He fears the moment you silence every voice that told you you weren't ready. He fears the moment you stand tall and say, "This is my territory now, Len." And you, chosen one, are standing on the edge of that moment. This is your time to rise, not in pride, but in power, not with ego, but with authority. You are not a spiritual beggar. You are a blood-bought warrior, and it's time you start walking like it. You were born to rule, not in the worldly sense, but in the kingdom sense. To rule over fear, to rule over patterns that once bound you, to rule over insecurity, doubt, and delay, and to walk in dominion that was written over your life before you were formed. As the book of Psalms, chapter 8, verse 6 declares, "You made them rulers over the works of your hands. you put everything under their feet. That them includes you. You were made to walk with things under your feet, not wrapped around your ankles. You've been dragging chains that were already broken, carrying burdens that were already nailed to the cross. And now, God is calling you to rise not as the wounded, but as the warrior. The days of shrinking are over. The days of apologizing for your oil are over. The days of watching others walk in power while you sit in shame are over. You are a royal priesthood, a chosen vessel, a spiritual ruler. And what does a ruler do? A ruler reclaims. You don't ask permission to take back what's yours. You declare it. You don't beg the enemy to let go. You command it. And you don't wait for the right feelings to walk in purpose. You walk by faith. It's time to reclaim your mind, your identity, your time, your anointing, your authority. It's time to go back into every place you lost yourself and say, no more. End. No more letting fear decide. No more letting delay rob years. No more letting generational lies limit your future. You are not the one who will continue cycles. You are the one who will confront them. You will take back what was mishandled. You will build what was never finished. You will declare what was never said. And if no one in your bloodline ever modeled authority, you will become the blueprint. There's a reason you feel the fire stirring as you read this. A reason your eyes are burning and your heart feels heavy. Because your spirit knows. This isn't just motivation. It's confirmation. You were born to carry keys, not chains. To set captives free, not just to watch from the sidelines. You were born to rise, rule, and reclaim. And now, it's your move. If this word confirmed what you've already been feeling in your spirit, if you know this isn't just a good message, it's your marching orders, then act. Like this message. Share it. Subscribe now. This isn't about following a voice. It's about staying connected to a flow, a prophetic flow that's guiding you back into dominion. And don't scroll without speaking. This is where many forget, but you must respond in the spirit. Let your words echo the fire rising in your soul. Right now, comment, I take it back. Yes, comment that. Say it boldly. Say it even if your hands are shaking. Because when you type it, you're doing more than engaging. You're declaring. You're speaking into the spiritual realm. You're drawing a line in the sand. I take back my mind. End of T. I take back my joy. End of T. I take back my position in the spirit. End of T. This isn't for everyone. But if it's for you, then your silence is no longer holy, it's hindering. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Because rulers don't whisper, they declare. And you were born to rule. You are the earthquake hell fears. Not because you shout the loudest, not because you have a platform, not because you've mastered every verse, but because you carry something that cannot be replicated, borrowed, or fake divine alignment. When a chosen one walks in alignment, the spiritual realm reacts. Hell trembles, darkness scatters, strongholds fracture. Because alignment is power. It's not about perfection. It's about being in the exact place, at the exact time, with the exact heart posture heaven designed for you. You are that person. Right now, for too long, you thought power looked like performance. You thought impact meant fame. But in God's kingdom, the ones who shake nations are often the ones no one sees. The intercessor in the secret place, the worshipper no one applauds, The obedient soul who does the small things with fierce faithfulness, and that's you, chosen one. You are not a disturbance. You are a disruption, an intentional one. Your presence does not simply shift atmospheres, it breaks old ones entirely. You're not just walking into rooms. You're walking into battles, into old altars built on fear, into generational systems built on silence, into cycles that thought they had permanence. And when you arrive in alignment, in obedience, in truth, everything begins to shake. You've felt it. When you speak, conversation change. When you pray, things happen. When you worship, the atmosphere thickens, not because you're emotional, but because your voice carries weight. You've been carrying spiritual authority without fully realizing it. But now, you're stepping into the understanding of what's always been true. You were never just part of the background. You were always a signal, a divine interruption, an earthquake in disguise. That's why hell invested so much in trying to make you question yourself. Why the spirit of confusion chased you. Why your identity was attacked from childhood. Because if you ever realized how loud your obedience is in the spirit, you'd stop apologizing and start advancing. And you're advancing now. Hell hoped you would stay locked in cycles, bound by indecision, chained by fear, muted by doubt. But something in you kept rising, kept resisting, kept surviving what others didn't. And that something is what makes you unstoppable. You are dangerous because you've suffered deeply and still said yes. You are dangerous because the fire didn't destroy you, it refined you. You are dangerous because you are not after attention, you're after alignment. And that kind of focus makes you a weapon in God's hand. Do you know what happens when someone like you gets in sync with heaven's rhythm? Systems break. Territories shift. What was held up for years is suddenly released. Because you carry the force of obedience, and that obedience carries spiritual velocity. You are not waiting to become powerful. You already are. Every time you refused to bow to bitterness, you became more dangerous. Every time you forgave when it would have been easier to curse, you became more dangerous. Every time you kept your posture when your heart was breaking, heaven took notice, and so did hell. And now, they know. You're awake. You're aware. You're aligned. You've crossed the line between wondering if you're called and walking like you are, between questioning your authority and declaring it, between hiding your light and unleashing it. You are not the storm, you are the shaking that comes after, the shaking that signals old things breaking, the shaking that disorients darkness, the shaking that precedes revival. And no, it hasn't been easy. Earthquakes aren't key. They don't move politely. They tear down what man built without foundation. They split the ground beneath what looked unshakable. And in your life, there's been tearing. There's been loss. There's been trauma. But all of it was making room for the glory you now carry. You were never meant to move softly. You were meant to move with force. So, stop explaining your weight. Stop shrinking for comfort. Stop apologizing for carrying power in a world addicted to pretending. You are not here to blend. You are here to break through. Your footsteps in the Spirit are not gentle. They are thunder. And that thunder is not arrogance. It's evidence. Evidence that you are in step with heaven's rhythm, that you are walking in purpose, that you are responding to the sound of divine summoning. When an earthquake happens, it does not ask permission. It simply arrives and everything adjusts. That's you now. You are not moving with caution. You are moving with confirmation. Hell doesn't fear crowds. It fears clarity. And you, chosen one, are now walking in the kind of clarity that makes every unclean thing scramble for cover. You are not the same. You've crossed over. You've been forged in fire. You've found your footing. And now, every step you take sends ripples through realms unseen. You are the earthquake hell fears, and you've only just begun to shake. You are crowned in fire, sent in glory. There is nothing ordinary about your existence. You were not called merely to survive the warfare. You were chosen to wear it as a crown. Everything you have endured, every dark valley, every unexplainable battle, every hour you cried out with no answer, it all produced something eternal in you. You did not walk through the fire in vain. The flame was not sent to destroy you, but to reveal you. And now, what once felt like agony has become authority. What once felt like isolation has turned into revelation. You are not just marked, you are mantled. Heaven did not send you back into this world empty-handed. You carry glory now. Not the glory of man's applause, but the quiet, immovable weight of someone who has touched the hem of eternity and lived to tell about it. You carry the residue of God's presence on your spirit. You've been in places words cannot explain, and what you carry because of it cannot be mimicked or manufactured. This fire you wear is not decorative. It is functional. It protects what is holy in you. It burns away what cannot go with you. It keeps you aligned when distractions try to call your name. You are not dressed in ashes. You are dressed in the evidence of what you overcame. You were burned, but not buried. Marked, but not consumed. And now, you wear fire like a crown. Chosen one. Glory rests on you, not because you chased it, but because you were willing to be crushed, because you were willing to lose, to surrender, to obey when no one was clapping, when no one understood. Glory does not come cheaply. It costs everything. But now that you carry it, nothing can take it from you. The ones God sends in glory are never sent in silence. They arrive with a shift. They step into rooms and atmospheres, respond, not because they are loud, but because they are aligned. And you, now, are that one. You are the answer to prayers. Your ancestors whispered through tears. You are the manifestation of obedience passed down through bloodline 7 when no one understood what they were carrying. You are heaven's yes in a generation full of no. And what you carry now is not just for you, it's for every broken one you'll pass, for every soul asleep to its calling, for every wandering heart searching for home. You've become a signal in the spirit, a living prophecy, a walking altar. You are not the same anymore. What used to shake you doesn't move you. What used to tempt you doesn't entice you. What used to define you no longer holds weight. You've come through the narrow place. You've endured the refining, and now you are standing on the other side. Not as a victim, but as one who overcame. And that overcoming is not a badge. It is a weapon. You are not passive. You are prophetic. Every step you take now is ordered. Every word you release is weighted. Every prayer you pray is sharpened by the blade of experience. You are not praying theories. You are declaring truth from the ground you bled on. There is a sound in your spirit now, a clarity, a certainty. You've tasted heaven. You've survived hell. You've outlasted the storm. And now you walk in a realm where fear has no access. The glory you carry makes you dangerous. Because it wasn't handed to you, it was wrestled for, fought for, wept over. And now, it rests on you like a mantle, crowned in fire, sent in glory. You are the type hell fears and heaven trusts. You are the one who didn't just survive, you answered. You aligned. You obeyed. And now, every room you enter, every soul you touch, every word you release carries that fire, that weight, that glory. You are not walking into the world anymore. You are being sent. And with that sending comes responsibility, but also favor, not the favor of popularity, but the favor of presence, divine presence, that settles, lingers, and shakes everything it touches. Do not take it lightly. Do not look back. Do not step small. You were called to reign in this hour, to stand where others fell, to carry what others dropped, to speak what others feared, to release what others held back. You are the one God trusted with the fire, and you are the one He now sends in glory. Chosen one. If you're still here, it's because your spirit recognized this wasn't just a message, it was a mandate. You didn't stumble across these words. Heaven orchestrated this moment. You were meant to receive this fire. You've just journeyed through divine revelation, not entertainment. Something eternal has been unlocked in you. You feel it. The weight, the urgency, the knowing. You're not the same. You can't go back now, not to small thinking, not to fear, not to silence, because you have been called out, called up, called into alignment. This was not just about information, it was about transformation. Every word you read was confirmation of what your soul already knew. You were born for this hour. So now it's your turn to respond. Like this messenger, not for vanity, but for victory. It tells heaven, I receive it. Share it boldly. Someone else is waiting for what just woke you up. Subscribe, because this is not the end, it's the beginning of your activation. And then comment below right now, I will obey. No, let the spirit realm hear it. Let the angels record it. Let hell regret that it ever came for you. I will obey. No, short words, eternal impact. Because from this moment forward, you're not just chosen, you're commissioned, crowned, consecrated, unstoppable. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You were not just spoken to, you were sent. And your next step is not optional. It's ordained.